minister, I believed with my whole heart that every single day I was either leading people to heaven or leading them to hell. Think about that. Every word, every handshake, every sermon, it all carried eternal weight. And I carried that weight on my shoulders. That's what religion does. It doesn't just ask you to believe something. It places you under duress. Christians today and many other religious believers are living under a fear-based framework. In the afterlife, the threat of eternal damnation, and in the present life, a God who is always watching, always judging, always ready to punish. And when they invite you into their faith, it's rarely an invitation to joy. It's an invitation to join them in their fear. That's not just
Go ahead and pause.
That's psychological coercion. That's spirit.
Yeah, so he's covering a lot of things. Now, I'm going to address the easiest, the low-hanging fruit on this from an anecdotal perspective, right? So he's saying, now, if somebody invites you to their faith, they're not inviting you to joy, they're inviting you to duress. That has not been my experience with people in the church. That's not what grandmama's experience been. If you go into there, people are dancing all around the place. Don't go to a Kojic church. That's not the experience. People aren't under duress in these religious situations. I don't know his situation. That's why I'm saying I'm addressing it from an anecdotal perspective, which is almost kind of useless. But as somebody who's at least experienced a good amount of Christianity in a few different places in the country, I can tell you that that's not been my experience. Is that something that y'all seen? Like, people are under duress in there, and people, when they invite somebody to believe in Jesus to come to their church, they're inviting them to duress instead of joy. Has that been y'all's experience?
In terms of newcomers and recruitment, I think Christianity is probably one of the most forgiving, the most lenient belief systems out there. Like you literally can be anybody and come into the faith.
Yeah, one of the things about
come as you are is one of the most popular. Like, hey, you don't got to dress up a certain way. You don't have to just come in here. Just get in here and get under the word. So I'm not saying that his experience is invalid. I'm saying that it's not common enough to apply it to this widespread conversation.
Let's walk through. People dress up in their Sunday's best. They invite their family. They go to the service. People dance around the service. They're playing music that gives you endorphins and dopamine, so you're feeling good the whole time. Most churches today, especially, are very seeker friendly, like a Joel Osteen, a TD Jakes, so you feel good. They tell you you're amazing. You get the best parking spot, in the parking lot, and after that, you go eat really good food. That's pretty much your church experience. Where is the duress in that? I'm not saying there's no duress in the Christian life or the religious life. And when you compare it to, like the Avatar movie is a representation of a lot of more native pagan religions that there would have been historically, they're a lot more serious. They're shedding blood. They're doing all kind of things. And those have a lot more duress. But if you think about it, generally speaking, it's not what people expect to go into a church. If I walk into a church right now, I'm expecting people to be a little bit happier than I'd prefer them to be. I'm not really an upbeat person naturally. I'm a very stoic person naturally. And I'm expecting that I'm going to have to kind of get comfortable with the fact that people are going to be wanting to socialize and what's your name and where are you from?
Hey, welcome on in.
Yeah, I got to put my social hat on. You see what I'm saying? So
right.
If a church was full of Vulcans, yeah, you might be under some duress because I'm just going to make you think, and it's not going to be very upbeat. It's going to be very stoic.
Yeah. Now, he seems like a serious person. He seems like a person who takes things seriously, but I don't think you can put that on the church or the entity that invited you in. If you're a guy who just takes things serious.
Is he a serious person or is he squinting through his glasses and makes him look serious?
No, I'm saying I'm taking his gravitas. You wild. Hey, listen.
So why are you squinting when you got glasses on? I don't get it.
Man, his prescription might be out of date. Get out of here, man. Optometry is expensive, man. He might not have it. He don't even have a tie on.
My people perish without a vision, I see. Dang.
But he seems like a person who takes things overly serious. That's just what, kind of the gravitas he's giving right now. And that's not a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying it's not a thing that you can put on the entity, Christianity as a whole. Maybe the church that he was brought in by was that, but that would be the anomaly and not the rule.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one. So yeah, he's already starting off, and I just already mentioned the anecdotal part of it, but in a larger context, one of my favorite pastors, a guy named John Piper, talks about joy. You know, the Christian life is about joy. It's not, you know, and so the thing is that there's going to be situations and circumstances in life. That's what these atheists got to understand, is that religion, especially Christianity, is meant to be all encompassing. It's meant to reach the person at the lowest moments, and it's meant to ground people at their highest moments. So it's gonna be for every situation. These atheists, and I don't know if he talks about it in this video here, but he's talking about like building an atheist community, helping people as they deconstruct from Christianity. It's like, y'all have nothing to offer people. If you go to a
But
wedding,
something that those people already have. Oh, you don't
yeah,
believe in that? Cool. You
well,
can come over here, yo.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, even if you take them from what they have, what are they gonna go to? You know, we have something for funerals. We have something for weddings. We have something for commemorations. We got something for graduations. Christianity encompasses every aspect of the human experience. Atheists can't provide that because it's hollow. It's the matrix. There's a lot of atheists believe it's the matrix, and none of this is real anyway. You got people, you know, atheists that believe that in nihilism, that nothing matters at all. You got, you know, atheists that believe that morality is just a aid for reproduction, and there's no deeper meaning than that. You got people that believe that it's all amounts to nothing anyway. We're just evolved broccoli. You got atheists that are naturalistic materialists that believe that there's only thing that exists is the material world. So love, justice, joy, that stuff doesn't even really exist. Math doesn't exist. Logic doesn't exist. Those people who really believe that stuff in the atheistic community, how are you going to raise a family with those values? You see that with David Hume. David Hume, you know, one of the most famous atheists, his daughter talks about the fact that when she would do something that her dad didn't like, and he would be like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And she'd be like, why? And as an atheist, he had nothing else to go with it. Don't do it because I don't like when you do it. You can't say it's wrong in an absolute sense. He can't say that it's an offense to God. He can't say that there's a real thing like right and wrong. When you know, but anyways, we'll get more into that as the video goes on. But I just want to say, excuse me, these guys think, you know, are on this cosmic quest for good. I think they're doing the Lord's work by converting everybody into atheism. And he's doing this doom and gloom spiel where he's saying that people are, you know, walking around with their head down, and, you know, and it's not the reality of a church. And the guy who sent me this video, Will, what we were talking about earlier, the reality is that Will and I can walk into a church and he can test this out.
You can walk into 10 churches and test this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like your first introduction to the church, for the most part, like you can go to a church a bunch of times before you even have to join. There's no obligations before you even join a church for most churches. There's no obligation.
Not to mention historically, when the martyrs of the early church were going to their deletion in coliseums where lions were being, you know, put on them and all kinds of different things like that, there's accounts of them singing to their own deletion. So even when they were getting ready to deal with some real gloom and some real pain, what the accounts that we have available is they count it all as joy. They count suffering as joy for the sake of Christ. So even in the worst moments, even when you watch those slave movies and they're singing and they're humming while they're doing that work, that's what got them through all the anguish they dealt with. So from a historical context, we don't see it. If we go to the here and now, contemporary context, walk in church, nobody's doing doom and gloom and stuff like that. That's outlandish. The only people you see that really have the doom and gloom stuff is you got, what's his name? That was, who's Nipsey Hussle's OG?
Big U.
You saw when Big U was on Vlad, what he was saying about all the foul stuff he did?
Mm-hmm.
What was he saying? He was like, man, I'm just hoping I get into heaven.
Yeah, he said he wanted to do enough deeds to equal out the bad he done. He was trying to do more good deeds.
People that I know that have that doom and gloom was because they've done some foul, wicked stuff on this earth. And they know they have, and nobody else knows how much bad they've done, but they might know they've done some bad. And those people, partners that I've had growing up that have known they've done some foul stuff, and maybe I was their angel on their shoulder, whatever the case may be, they would express some of that stuff. But that's the Hawthorne principle. Like you learn when you learn about business, when people know they're being observed, they tend to act better. So just the fact they know that, hey, God sees my actions, and and I'm doing foul stuff out here. I'm doing some street stuff out here that's hurting people that are innocent. I've seen some of them look at it a certain way. They drive by church and they pour the liquor out. Oh yeah, we drive by church, pour the liquor out real quick. So it gets very somber in those situations, but that's a good thing. You should think about the doom and the gloom and the duress when you're doing foul things to people who haven't deserved any of it. When you disappoint, your mom, you see Biggie talk about my life's a piece of, it ain't hard to tell. You see what I'm saying? When he's rapping that stuff, is because his mom's kicking him out because she's trying to raise him to be an upstanding young man, and he's choosing to do the worst foul things and go the way of the streets.
I sip Tanqueray and wish we wasn't living so
Yeah,
devilish.
I sip Tanqueray. He said, so you can reminisce and wish you wasn't living so devilish. So yeah, that's the beauty of religion and spirituality, specifically Christianity, is that whenever you are doing those vile, wicked acts, that your conscience is picking at you and imposing itself on you, saying, hey, look, there's got to be a better way. You'll be accountable for these things. So anyways.
So you think that's maybe what he's talking about? The weight of the wrongs he's doing and the stuff he want to participate in, that's part of what's weighing on his shoulders? Because that's what I was thinking. I'm thinking like, is he using the right words? But we got to judge the words he used. But I know, personally, when I was younger, there were certain things I wanted to get into. After doing certain things, I did feel really bad, and I would think about the consequences. But it wasn't like my everyday life. It's just certain things that was definitely going on.
But what do you mean you think about the consequences? What about things that nobody's ever going to know you did?
That's what I mean. Consequences as far as God. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. But so I was wondering if that was the case with him. But we got to judge him by his words. But I was wondering if he was using the right words.
Well, I'm judging him by his words, but he hasn't finished speaking yet. We're only like a minute into the video.
Yeah, let's get to it.
To join them in their fear. That's not just persuasion. That's psychological coercion. That's spiritual blackmail dressed up as good news. So what should our response be? What do we do when people live under this kind of fear? What do we do when they invite us to share in it? And how do we actually help? That's what today's conversation is going to be about. Let's start with understanding the reality. For many Christians, the afterlife is a threat of eternal punishment. Eternal damnation is not a small fear. It's infinite suffering with no escape clause. Even the possibility of that outcome creates paralyzing anxiety. You can see it in my comments. Many Christians are taught this from early childhood, when the imagination is most vulnerable. The fear becomes a baseline emotional reality long before it's rationally examined. Every choice, every doubt, every wrong thought is framed as potentially tipping the scale toward eternal torture. This is less a belief than a psychological trap. The present life then becomes constant surveillance. God is seen as a warden. A vengeful, intervening deity isn't just watching, he's punishing, correcting, and testing. That creates the sense of living in a cosmic panopticon, where even private thoughts are policed. Over time, believers don't just fear God, they fear themselves. Their own mind becomes a suspect, their own body a liability. If your right hand offends you, cut it off. This creates a perpetual guilt cycle. Even small mistakes are infused with eternal consequence. Confession, repentance, and rededication become ongoing rituals to manage this inner pressure disguised as peace. That pressure often reveals itself in the invitations framed by damnation. It's the sales pitch by threat. The invitation to church or conversion is rarely neutral. It's presented as, come with me or risk eternal regret. That's a contagion of fear. Believers often feel obligated to recruit, not out of genuine joy or connection, but because not warning you would itself be a sin. Misery loves company. If they're living in fear, the only relief is getting others to validate that fear by joining it. Let's take a look at this through my personal window. Leading people to heaven or hell with every decision. This creates a binary worldview. As a young minister, I wasn't just preaching sermons, I was carrying the unbearable burden of eternal outcomes on my shoulders. Every interaction was framed as salvation or damnation. That kind of belief system manufactures a constant crisis. There's no room for rest or nuance because eternity is always at stake. This is why we call it coercion and not persuasion. When the stakes are eternal torture, choice is not really choice, it's blackmail. This isn't just abstract theology. It's the lived reality of millions of people who wake up every day under the pressure of both eternal threat and constant surveillance. Understanding this makes clear why conversations with Christians can feel so charged. It's not just about ideas. It's about survival as they...
So yeah, the funny thing about this is, doesn't he sound religious still? you know, the way from his tone to the fact that he's like, this is like some kind of call to all the atheists out there and the sympathizers of his cause to say, hey, look, these people out here are under duress and they're really hurting and they feel like they have nowhere to go and they're being coerced into believing something they don't want to believe, so they don't go to a place that is a horrible place. And so we need to whatever. But the reality of it is, one, you're on mute if you're talking, you know, it's a false dilemma. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying you said, does he sound religious? Like he's promoting his religion.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a religious call. You know, that's why I have more respect for atheists who just say things like, we're just evolved broccoli, we're just cosmic stardust. You know, when a great white shark forcibly copulates with the female great white shark, what we would call grape, you know, in the human world, they would say that there's no difference between a human doing it and there's no difference between a shark doing it. At least that's consistent with their atheistic worldview. But this guy wants all the impulses and the conviction of a religion, all the resolute, you know, commands of a religion without the religion. But it's an unstable house. There's no foundation; it would fall. Without the ontological foundation of that call that he's doing, it's going to fall down. Because what are we doing this for? Why are we doing this thing? Why not just, as Paul said in the Bible, if this is not real, let's eat and drink for tomorrow we die. That's what he said. This ain't real. Let's eat and drink for tomorrow we die. It would just be somewhat mitigated hedonism, because you wouldn't want to do something that's going to get you blocked up or something that's going to get you to where you can't fully enjoy yourself while you're on this earth. But generally speaking, if their worldview is true, you might as well just do as much as you can, like you can get away with, because there is no, you know, justice. What the mustache man did is just an opinion. That's his opinion. Somebody can have an opinion that he was wrong, and there's no right and there's no wrong. It's all relativistic. So the thing is, he's using people's religious fervor about morality and easing people's burdens. He's appealing to it, but he's denying the foundation of it, the absoluteness of it, because it comes from God that transcends nature. So he talks about coercion, right? The issue with this coercion thing is that he's using the word in a wrong way, in an inappropriate way. Coercion is typically whenever you're using threats and intimidation to get somebody to do something they don't want to do against their will. But if you tell somebody, hey, look, don't rob that bank because you're going to go to jail, that's not coercion. That's a legitimate warning. So somebody says, hey, look, if you're doing these foul acts against humanity, you're not just offending man, you're offending God. And you will have to give an account for that. That's a fair warning. That's not coercion, because the stuff that they're trying to get the person to not do is stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And so it's like an appeal to emotion that he's doing. It is an appeal to emotion with a coercion word. And so I think this is another situation where you see these guys beguiling people with their wording. It seems like he's reading off a teleprompter or something like that.
Yeah, that was
that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, he's a pretty good orator. I do appreciate his tonality. I think he's mastered what he's doing, and he seems like he's going really fast. But I just want the audience out there, the folks out there who really who appreciate critical thinking and epistemology, to really evaluate what this guy is saying. It doesn't make as much sense as his posture and resolute, you know, tone would pretend it does.
We've been taught to imagine it. For them, it is literally eternal life or eternal death. So now that we've unpacked this, what should be our proper response to this reality? Well, first, I'd say clarity before condemnation. Most Christians didn't design the system. They inherited it through culture, through family, and community. Condemning them for being trapped only deepens their sense of shame. Fear does not equal truth. The intensity of their fear doesn't validate the claims of their religion. It validates the power of the indoctrination. Fear is a poor metric of reality, but it is a strong measure of how deeply an idea has been implanted. Instead of reacting with anger or superiority, clarity allows us to see the situation plainly. They are victims of an architecture of control, not the villains who built it. Their fear is real, even if the source is not. Dismissing the fear outright, hell isn't real, stop worrying, can come across as cold or even dismissive. We can affirm the pain without affirming the framework. We can take the middle path. Empathy does not require agreement. We can validate their experience. I understand how terrifying that must feel for you, while still offering an alternative perspective that undermines the system's grip. If we mock or belittle their fear, we only reinforce the narrative that outsiders are cruel and untrustworthy. But if we collude with the fear, we keep them trapped. The balance is crucial. Fear often works best when it remains unnamed and unquestioned. Simply labeling it as coercion or psychological duress strips it of some of its invisible authority. When believers hear someone says what you're experiencing is not love, it's control, it plants a seed. The frame shifts from divine truth to human manipulation. I remember sharing a story with a coworker one time about me trying to be better about submitting to my pastor as my spiritual authority. In just a few words, he planted a seed that changed the trajectory of my life. He said, Durante, that sounds like abuse. After thinking about it for about 5 seconds, I was in tears because he was absolutely right. And he was the first person who created the space to call it what it was. Once fear is exposed as a tactic rather than a truth, it begins to lose its grip. People then can begin to see that the terror was manufactured, not revealed.
And
If
can we
our
pause it right here?
response gives clarity, empathy, or
So the thing about what he's saying right here is that this stuff does happen, so, and I want everybody out there to hear this as people watch the video from now into infinity, that this is not an attack on what he's saying so much. It's more of an evaluation of his methodology and his approach to the conversation, and how objective he's being about painting the scenario for people who may not be familiar with the backdrop of this. Not everybody's come from a religious context. I know Enos specifically, you came from a very non-religious context. And the thing is that people that might hear that might really believe that people are in despair in this way. And I'm sure it happens. I've been a victim of religious abuse, but I've been a victim of corporate abuse. I've been a victim of domestic abuse. I've been a victim of, occupational abuse, all kind of different abuses. I've had restaurants treat me bad. I've had friends treat me bad, strangers, you name it. And so the thing is that it's a lot more frequent outside of the church than it's been inside of the church. But it does happen. If you spend a lot of time in the church or with church people, you're going to deal with it because they're taking everybody. And so when he's talking about this pastor, he wanted to do a better job submitting to his pastor. Only he knows in his heart if he was doing it out of fear. Now, I have no idea on earth what a pastor could do to him in fear. He's not a woman, so there's no kind of SA type stuff. The most that could happen is that maybe some social shame. He may lose his opportunity to gain position. But that's one of those things. Go ahead.
Even if that's the case, there's several other instances in life where you would want to do better for the person that you're in a relationship with, or that other dynamic. I mean, people do better for their wives, right? People want to be better human being for their wives or for their kids. Does that also constitute abuse? When someone is wanting to improve their relationship or their dynamic with the other person, like, I don't understand why this singularly is abuse, or even sounds like abuse, because he said he was trying to do a better job at submitting to his pastor. At no point, at least in this video, did he say my pastor was making me do this or was forcing me to submit or was telling me I did a bad job of submitting. Like, he's saying, like, this is something that he wanted to do, he chose to do, is what I'm getting from it. And that I'm sure there's a deeper context, or there's more context to explain how he got to that conclusion. But the overall point I'm trying to make is, in this video where he's trying to indoctrinate or kind of pull folks away from the belief system, he's not offering that context.
Yeah, the difficulty with a lot of this stuff to me is it comes back to this anti-establishment narrative again. It's like a pastor, you submit, people can hear that and go, oh, wow, that sounds like abuse. Do you even know the context? The person who said, do you even know the context of this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in any organization, there's an org chart. One of the things I heard when Marquette Devon Burton, I think his name is, very sharp guy. I'm not always a fan of his rhetorical, techniques. But he was debating my son, and I was watching a piece of it earlier today. And part of the conversation that they were having, whenever they were talking about authorities and stuff like that, was a hatred towards the white man or the government. And so whenever you have that hatred towards the government or the white man, whatever you say, now it's permissible to do certain things that would otherwise be inappropriate and or immoral. So it's like, well, because they're the enemy, then it's okay to do this. It's okay to cheat. It's okay to lie. It's okay to steal. It's okay to it's okay to be irrational.
Justification of irrational behavior.
And so I've seen people do these kind of things to people, and I think he was just a victim. This guy right here we're looking at right now is a victim of it, where somebody that's anti-religious, whatever the case may be, or maybe they are religious themselves, but they just have this mindset of, I don't care if they're a pastor, elder, whatever the case may be. I don't care what the Bible says about submitting to elders. I just think that we should all be on the same level, and nobody should submit to anybody because they just have this anarchist, naively, egalitarian perspective, the very, I would say, kind of like a feminine mindset that nobody's above anybody kind of a thing, which is completely destroys education, corporations, the military, everything that we hold dear in our society today. And they're just going, well, if you're having to work hard to submit to the pastor, then that sounds like abuse. You shouldn't have to do that. And the reality is that now don't get me wrong, they're ministers, which means they're servants. So in the leadership in the church, they are to serve. And it says, you want to be the greatest of all time, you must be the biggest servant. And I do think there's a lot of Hollywood churches out there that take advantage of people and they abuse their authority. And instead of them being the biggest servants, they use their authority to crush people and to put burdens on people. But the Bible specifically says that stuff is wrong.
Right. That's what I was on. You can't keep ascribing human fallibility to the belief system, the religion, or that's intellectually unfair. Is this?
And you got to deal with the devil in you. Some people are attracted to superstars, whether in the church and out of the church. So you can have a humble pastor who's maybe meek outside of the pulpit. He's not somebody that you're going to get goosebumps about. And maybe even his message doesn't levitate you across the room. But he's faithful to the text. He's a good servant. He's meek. And that guy, he doesn't attract a lot of people. But the guy who's hooping and hollering, and he's got the fancy clothes and the fancy shoes, he's shiny, he's bombastic, he tells you what you want to hear, he flatters you, he tickles your ears, you're drawn, now you're in that church, and then you're surprised when that guy is abusing you.
Yeah.
It was always,
dating a criminal. Oh, I date a drug dealer. Yeah. He's tough. And then be like, I can't believe he.
That's what happened to Kill Bill.
Remember he hit me.
Remember what Uma Thurman said at the end of the movie? She was like, you shot me. And he was like, well, I'm an assassin. She was like, well, yeah, I know you're an assassin, but I never thought you would do it to me.
But that's what I do. That's my thing.
That's my thing. That's what you like me because I do my thing and I did my thing.
Exactly. You like that aggression, but when it turned on you, all of it, and that's it's a bit of humor.
Like they mistreat everybody around
than everyone else. So that couldn't happen to me, even though it was like, that's weird.
Enos had a situation like that. I don't know why Enos went to that church or why he was so attracted to it, but Enos was going to a church with a superstar, little man complex apostle where he was. Yeah. And people, Enos will talk about, I'm only talking about it instead of him because I don't know if he wants to share about it, but he said when that guy would walk around, people would move a bit out of his way like he was part in the Red Sea.
Man, yeah, that was crazy, man. Yeah, it was crazy because he claimed he had a lot of spiritual gifts, so he would walk up and down the aisles. Yeah, he'd walk up and down the aisles like he was casting out demons. That's what he said. He had a gift in casting out demons. So he'd walk up and down the aisles, and people would get scared, wondering if they had demons inside of them. Short guy, he might have been like, I don't know, like 5'1", 5'2", short guy.
Oh, I didn't know he was that short.
He was short. He wasn't over 5'5". So
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
No, he's short of 5. Yeah, I got you. But yeah, Volker mentioned that earlier. So,
Well, just
and
to
it
show,
was,
this wasn't a guy of stature that's, because there is some kind of, people pick presidents that are tall, over 6 foot. Studies show women, over 60% of women prefer a guy who's like over 6 foot tall. So there's something that people that men,
yeah,
both of you gentlemen are like that. Y'all are tall of stature and stuff like that. So there's something psychological with it.
yeah,
But this guy didn't even have that. So these people are moving out of this guy's way and all that kind of stuff. And I spoke with the guy on the phone once or twice, and just to see that how narcissistic he was and how self-absorbed he was. And those
Yeah.
people chose somebody like that.
hmm
And why'd you pick that place out of all places, if you don't mind me asking? I'm kind of curious why, because that would be a turnoff for me.
yeah. So when the guys I was working with, they was going to that church.
This is like 20 years ago, y'all, by the way.
Yeah. So I didn't have a church home at the time. So, oh, you know what it was? I went into the
dopamine.
church. I went into the church and they was playing G. Craig Lewis videos. I was like, oh snap! They know about G. Craig Lewis, Truth by Hip Hop, and that was it. I was meeting with him. I met with him a few times because I didn't understand the doctrine or what he was preaching. So I was like, yeah, I got to talk to him a few times. So when I went and met with him, he was like, man, you're the only one that want to meet with me. Because a lot of my members don't want to meet. So they would schedule meetings. I would ask, hey, what you think about this? What you think about that? He'd give me like 30 minutes or an hour of time. So the second time he said he was too busy. And I was like, man, I wanted to he was probably one of the second or third pastors I had deep conversations with. I was like, I just go ahead and join so I can have more conversations with him or whatever. And that was it. It wasn't really a lot of thought. It was a lot of my guys I was working with was already going there. And I just went ahead and joined. So that's what happened.
And his personality wasn't a turnoff for you?
I didn't afterwards. Now I went to the church. I wasn't going to church for like months. It was like a few times I went. So I didn't it wasn't a turn off in the beginning. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't a turn off in the beginning. Afterwards, it was like, yo, we used to have some of the guys we was going to church was like, yo, something's off. And I was like, well, I'm just here for the word. I don't have a church home, so the guys I'm going to work with is going here. And it's like, it's up the street from where I live at. It was convenient. But then, I think I was in the church for like 4, maybe like 6 months. But a lot happened within that 6 months, though. So a lot happened. But this personality over
With the
time.
church, or you talking about with you, like in your personal life outside the church?
Say it again. What's the question?
You said a lot happened in that time span.
Yeah.
You're talking about in the church.
Yeah, the relationship I had I ended up getting what they call. There's no such thing as this, but they I forgot what they did to Martin Luther, the Roman Church, the Catholic Church. They kicked them out. You can't kick nobody out, but
Oh, you talking about excommunicated?
Yeah, excommunicated. Yeah, I got excommunicated from the church because it didn't
I don't
stop.
get what you mean. Why can't you say they can't kick anybody out? I don't get what you mean by that.
Well, when I mean kicked out, I say it another way, like say I'm not welcome here.
You saying a church can't tell somebody they're not welcome there? Somebody can just come and urinate all over the pews and be like, "We can't say he's not welcome here."
Yeah, I'm glad you. I could clarify that. Not for what I was doing. I was asking more questions about some of the doctrines that he was.
What I'm saying is, can they tell somebody they're not welcome here?
Yeah, they can. They can.
Because it seemed like you were saying that they can't do that.
Yeah, they couldn't do that for the reasons why they was doing it to me. That wasn't biblical.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Okay, gotcha. I understand that.
They did do it though.
No, they didn't. They said it. I just stopped. I had stopped going anyway. They had told people I knew, but I had already stopped going to the church anyway. But yeah, but to Volker's
You
point,
can't quit.
To my Volker's point, one of the things I did admire about him because he just knew the word Old Testament. I wasn't familiar with a lot of the Old Testament scriptures, and he was just breaking down a lot of the Old Testament, and he was he was in agreement with the Truth Behind Hip Hop DVD. So I was like, oh, I'm young. I'm like, okay, man, this is already a video I'm watching. Maybe this is the church I need to join. And I was like, and people was already going there. It was just that simple.
You can go ahead and play it again.
All right.
Naming, we risk one or two extremes: harsh condemnation that alienates, or soft enabling that keeps people in chains. But by holding all three together, clarity, empathy, and naming, we create space for transformation. We become not just the critics of religion, but guides out of coercion. Okay, so then what should our proper response to their invitations be like? Well, clearly, refuse the premise. Avoid the trap of what if. Many invitations hinge on a hypothetical. But what if hell is real? What if you could see your family again? This question is designed to pull you into their framework where fear dictates the logic. By refusing the premise, you step outside the frame entirely. Instead of debating hell's geography or heaven's gates, you reveal the strategy. If your belief needs threats to keep people loyal, maybe it's not about love at all. This undermines the coercive logic at its roots. You're not rejecting their invitation rudely. You're shining light on the mechanism that makes the invitation feel urgent. Their frame is built on avoidance, avoiding hell, avoiding God's wrath. Flipping the frame means centering the conversation on pursuit, pursuing freedom, dignity, joy, and love without strings attached. By asking, do you believe love needs threats to be real? You make them face a contradiction in their system. The question itself does the work without needing a sermon. You shift
You
the
can go ahead and
ground from
pause it.
protect yourself from
Yep.
damnation to choose a life ground.
I want the audience out here to hear what I'm about to say is not a refutation of his overall point. That wasn't the point of breaking down this video. I think a lot of times we deal with what I call the nirvana fallacy, where something it's not perfect, it's not good. And with this guy's a classic point. Before I get into breaking down what he was saying, I was trying to write it down as he was talking, but it's not easy because my handwriting is terrible, poor dexterity. But what he's talking about, let's think of this guy's an atheist. So he's saying, hey, look, y'all, they're going to use fear to pull you in. They're going to use coercion to get you in. If you just reject the premise that it's really urgent because there's, hell, awaiting you, then you're fine. You're good. Then they lose all the pool of their sales pitch. But what is he offering them? If all that stuff is really for nothing, then he's offering, life is actually purposeless. There is no God in the sky. There is nothing that gives any type of real meaning, absolute meaning to your life. Any good thing that happened to you, any bad thing that happened to you, it's useless. You're a speck of dust on a bigger piece of dust that's wet, that's floating throughout space in a small galaxy in an ever expansive universe. And you will be forgotten and nobody will remember you. And it'll be like you never existed. That's what he's offering. I'm not getting into at this moment in time whether it's true or false. It's just that he's pretending, and that's the beauty of attacking the big religions, specifically Christianity here, is because there's so much written about it. Even casuals like Enos growing up, who wasn't raised religiously, still was able to glean things about the religion and the people and the culture because it's pervasive. It's everywhere. But the reality is, when people listen to guys like this, they don't think about what they're offering. They only think about what they're being asked to give up. I've seen this all the time. I've hired countless people. And when they don't get paid when they want to get paid, if a customer cancels and somebody on the phone's made a mistake and they go, man, I don't want to work here, man. People make mistakes and this, that, and the other, whatever. Even if it's not happening very often, they think I'm about to leave and go somewhere else. And I'm thinking in my head, like, wherever you're gonna go,
That's gonna happen as well.
it's gonna be another imperfect place. And how many times have I seen people leave one company and then beg to come back? And it's like, you went somewhere else that was even worse. Now, I'm not saying everybody leaves somewhere and goes somewhere worse, but you're gonna go somewhere that's still imperfect.
There's still gonna be mistakes made. Because again, it's people. People are fallible. People make mistakes. That's just what it is. There's not a perfect entity out there.
Most of Jesus' critiques were with the church, or with not the church, but with the religious establishment of the time. That's what most of his critiques. The apostles themselves, they were battling primarily with people of their own faith. Paul, before he became Paul, was Saul. He was the leading Christians. He was a religious man, a very devout religious man, the leading Christians. So when this guy is saying, like, we're gonna roll the red carpet out for you so that you can gracefully leave your delusion that's imposing itself on you and holding you down, where are you gonna land? You're gonna land in a nothingness. And how it's still scary that there's gonna be nothing. When you die, that's just it. That's just as scary. That's Jehovah's Witnesses belief. There's religious beliefs within loosely the umbrella of Christianity, even though they would be more considered a cult, that believe that you go into nothingness, like an atheist would probably believe.
This, you also have to consider that he's banking on, when he says things like this, he's banking on the fact that you haven't read the text. You don't understand the doctrine. This is, the doctrine actually specifically talks about how love is not, you don't have to earn it. They're gonna love you no matter how many times you mess up. The Lord loves you no matter how, like there are things in there that specifically refute this particular point that he's making. And when he makes a point like this, he's counting on the fact that you haven't read the doctrine, you haven't read the Bible. There's so many examples in the Bible where love is everlasting or love is unfettered. Like that's one of the base doctrines or principles about the Lord. Like the Lord will love you no matter what. How many times can you mess up and still always come back? The prodigal son is a great example. It's a parable that talks about like it doesn't matter what you do, you can depart from the family as long as you come. Like when you come back, we're gonna be here for you with open arms of love. Like there's so many examples in the Bible of that you would be hard pressed. You would have to have never heard any of this stuff or be specifically looking for something that goes against the doctrine to believe this particular point that he's making.
And I want everybody to keep in mind the church, we have to filter out our biases. One of our biases is a negative bias, negative confirmation. We look for the negative. Our brains are hardwired to remember negative as a survival, technique, so we can survive, because we have to fear more of the negative than the positive. If everything's great, there's no harm there. If something negative could potentially be there, our brain's gonna sear it into our subconscious and conscious so that we don't run into it and hurt ourselves. So yes, when we think about all the abuses of the church, all the negatives of the church, they're going to be glaring to us, but that's more indicative of our biology than it is the actual real circumstance. The church has done the most good around the world. If you go to any church, I went to Freshly Church one time, close to 20 years ago. They had a kitchen. They were doing good things. The ladies in there were happy. They were joyous. They had camaraderie. They had family. They had all kind of different things. The young people in there were being encouraged to do positive things. That's the reality. Walk into a church. Don't let this guy brainwash you into thinking that there's some real doom and gloom here. You walk into church, even if you got a superstar pastor, he's got a bread ministry. They're doing things for the community. They're helping women with their sons. They're teaching them skills. They have nonprofits. They're doing, even in the worst churches, you're going to see these kind of things.
They got schools. They have, bookstores, donations, soup kitchens. They donate on the holidays. They gather gifts, right? During Christmas that they just give away. Like there's so many things. And again, unless you're looking for, right? If you're out looking for the negative aspect of things, you can find that with anything, especially anything that deals with human beings.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't look.
No, you definitely should look, but you shouldn't attribute it. You should attribute the actions of one person or one entity, and attribute them across the board. Then you'd be guilty of the hasty generalization fallacy, where you take a singular experience and cast it across the entirety of the entity.
Yeah. For sure. So you can keep it going if you got, we don't know if you have comments or not, but if you don't have comments, you can go ahead and keep it going.
No.
But in flourishing, that's a different conversation entirely, one where fear no longer holds the mic. It's possible to care about a person without agreeing to every invitation they extend. You can listen respectfully while still saying, I'm not interested in this conversation. Their sense of urgency is real for them, but it doesn't have to be transferred to you. You are not responsible for managing their anxiety about your soul. By calmly setting boundaries, you show them what life outside of coercion looks like: engagement without pressure, dignity without fear, and relationship without manipulation. Invitations into fear-driven faith are not neutral. They are extensions of coercion. If you enter the conversation on their terms, you've already ceded the ground. By refusing the premise, flipping the frame, and setting boundaries, you reclaim your freedom while also modeling a healthier way of relating. This is not about winning debates. It's about embodying liberation in the face of manipulation. So understanding this, how do we truly help people that are in these coercive environments, whether it be religion, politics, or culture? Number one, offer safe exits. For many Christians, the fear of hell is only part of the chain. Leaving also means risking family rejection, social isolation, and cultural exile. It's not just a theological shift, it's an existential uprooting. That's why creating spaces like Bridge City Global, where we have our Sunday sessions, is so critical. When people see they won't be alone, the grip of fear
Plug.
loosens. Belief loses much of its power once isolation is no longer the
I didn't hear you say what?
I said
Plug.
price of freedom. This can look like discussion groups, online communities, mentoring, or simply being a consistent voice of care in someone's life. A safe landing place makes even considering the leap possible. We also have to normalize doubt. Within Christianity, doubt is often framed as weakness or rebellion. But in reality, doubt is evidence of intellectual honesty and moral courage. By treating doubt as normal, even necessary, you help believers reframe their own inner voice as a friend, not an enemy. Once people realize doubt isn't the devil, it becomes the crack in the wall where light begins to pour in. This next one is where the work is really needed at. Model joy beyond fear. This
Pause
is
it
the
real
strongest
quick.
apologetic. Fear-driven faith.
I want to address this doubt part right here. The thing about the doubt is I do think that people do have a misunderstanding about doubt. And a lot of times it's because a lot of us, we just are mentally lazy. There's things that we're allowed to doubt. I don't know. I'll stop whenever somebody interrupts me. We can go for the comment. I don't know if he knows or whoever wants to just pull. I don't know what verse he's referring to.
I already got it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
already up. Just whenever you go, whenever you stop.
Okay. Okay. We're finishing and you okay. Okay. So yeah. I mean, I think I forgot what I was saying now. So we can go and pull
The
it up.
doubt. You're talking about the doubt.
Oh yeah. So for the doubt thing, the reality is this: it depends what we're doubting. So if you're in a relationship with somebody, they start to doubt your love for them, and you're not doing anything that's worthy of doubting their love for them, for your love for them, then the reality is, yes, there's something to it. What's going on? A lot of times that means there's an insecurity in that person. The frailty, the weakness, vulnerable spot is in that person. The integrity relationship has been compromised. That's when doubt isn't a healthy thing. Now you reassure them, and you don't just reassure them for the moment to seal that leak, but you also want to reinforce it for the future. That's how relationships work. Relationships with God, relationship with your church, relationship with your friends and family. The reality is now, if the doubt is coming because you're doing things that will make them insecure, then yes, that's a healthy doubt. Part of my issue with guys like this, and I think he means well, to be honest with y'all. Even though that I think I wish he'd come about it in Freshie's words from a more objective or unbiased perspective. I'm saying that because you said the will, if I remember correctly. But the reality is that I think that when it comes to people like this, he has to understand that when he speaks so loosely about things, it's really just irresponsible. It's haphazard. Doubt in what context? There's a context in which doubt is helpful. You can call it skepticism. You can call it just not fully trusting something. That's makes sense. When somebody faith or confidence, confide with faith, that means you don't actually know all the way. So that by its very nature of the definition means there's doubt in there, or there at least a lack of resolve. There's something there that's still a little shaky. And I think people here has to understand that we got to categorize what this doubt is. So I want the audience out there to hear is that when you hear that, we got to think a little bit further, a little deeper than what he might want you to think. Understand, what is this? Is this a doubt that's coming from my own frailties as a human being? I think people doubt things, and when after it's explained, I'll give one quick example. I had a friend of mine, this is a church example as well. I had a friend of mine who, was down, he was going to this church. He wasn't a member of the church yet. His wife was, but he wasn't. And part of his issue was he would say, like, man, the church never did, the leaders of the ship of the church never calls me. There's 300 members in this church. They never call me. I don't see why they don't get in contact with me. If I had a church, I would reach out to people. I would do this. I would do that. And I'm like, hey, dude, they got 300 members here. Like, I mean, it's like 3 or 4 of them, and it's 300 of you, and that's just that's members. That's not even counting people who are just coming there visiting and all that kind of stuff right there. I said, How many times have you not reached out to somebody that might have needed you to reach out to them? Have you looking from both vantage points?
Mhm.
And he thought about it. He fought with me. We talked about it for a little while. Later on, he thought about it. He ended up reaching out to them like within the next week or so. They were over at his house within that week. They brought him groceries for his home. Did all that stuff for this dude. Guy's not even a member of the church.
You also
Didn't
got to
have-
consider
and he was
like
broke at
what
the time. He wasn't even had no money. It wasn't like it was tithe money attached to it. He was broke. Part of the issue that his wife was complaining about. And so my point is just saying this right here is that in that situation with this guy is because he was coming from a very selfish vantage point and he was doubting the love and the care and the responsive, ability of the elders. He was looking at it from a very negative perspective, a very self-absorbed perspective. And once he made that first move, they exceeded his expectations. So that doubt he found out was not a doubt because of their behavior. It was a doubt because his own human frailty of being irrational, of being selfish. And so not all doubt is good and not all doubt is bad. We got to evaluate on a case-by-case basis.
and when you listen to folks like this, even folks who are coming from a good place, you have to watch out for when you're evaluating certain standards. You have to watch out for people who have to focus on the worst extreme of the thing that they are talking about in order to make their point. There are stages and phases and different degrees of everything, right? There's extreme good and there's extreme bad with almost everything that you're talking about. If your point is being made and the only way you can make that point is to focus on the extreme negative aspect of it, just beware of that. Most of the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Oftentimes in a lot of examples. So you want to be careful about when you're listening to certain people and they say if they're only focusing on the bad, they're not focusing on any of the good. You have to wonder, like, what is your actual goal here? What is your agenda? And I would say possibly hating. For being honest,
I mean,
that sounds like a hater to me.
Man, the title said Christianity runs on fear. You know what I noticed about this? Because this is my first time watching this. The fact that he's actually coaching people how to deal with Christians is interesting. He's like, if they talking about certain things, you can opt out, like really giving them instructions. That was telling. I didn't realize he was doing that in this video. I ain't gonna say realize. I didn't expect him to be doing this in the video. It's interesting. He's actually giving you guidelines and tips.
Why did you expect him to be doing that? I'm curious.
Yeah, when I thought he was just going to go over the fears of what was going on in the church. Oh, what's the title? The title says, let me just pull the video up. Christianity runs on fear. So I thought the video was just going to be based on why Christians run on fear. I didn't think too deep in it. He's actually giving tools to avoid Christians.
So you didn't think that because you didn't think too deep into it, basically.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you.
I mean, I wouldn't say obviously, but yeah.
So it's more about you than it was about anything about him or something like that.
I wasn't. That's why I said I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, that's
Okay,
that's a good observation. Yeah, for what
I thought you were maybe saying that something that he was something that you knew about him, or there's something in the context to where you wouldn't expect him to do something like that. But it was more like you just didn't really think that deep into it.
Also want to point out that
I would say this, that the title, yeah, you're right. The title and his introduction, I just wasn't me. You're right. Me expecting him to give you tools and guides to avoid certain conversations with Christians. It's interesting. It's interesting.
The operative word is avoid conversations with Christians. So he's not even giving people the benefit of their doubt that that he can educate them enough to have these conversations and still end up forming their own opinion. He said, hey, don't even have that conversation. Don't even talk to them, because what I'm thinking is, like, are they not intelligent enough or educated enough to have this conversation and not, fall under the quote unquote spell that he's saying that they're putting on them. Mm-hmm. So essentially what he's saying is you guys are, I'm paraphrasing. A lot of y'all are too simple to not be taken in by this chicanery. So instead of that, I'm just telling you, don't do it. Don't even have the conversation.
Yeah.
Which is that I don't think that's intellectually honest either. Like, just don't listen to the other side and you'll be okay. that seems more indoctrination than anything I've heard him
Yeah,
talk about with Christianity.
But it sounds like the guys, because he's advocating for atheism. It sounds like he's giving guidelines to protect them. He's like, do this to protect yourself. That's how it was
Yeah,
sounding to me. It's telling.
yeah. Because what about the people who join the church and come to Christianity, come to Christ, and it improves their lives?
I mean, the studies are out on that. I mean, the studies
That's
show
what
the
I'm
people
saying.
that
So many
have
stories out there.
Yeah, the people that, well, the stories, but I'm even talking about, even aside from stories, which is great. We can definitely get into that, but even the studies they've done on that, people that have religious belief are on less antidepressants. They have longer marriages.
Yeah.
They have more fulfilled marriages. They people that believe in the afterlife and that there's something that's going to happen. Good can come out of it, and there's forces that act on their behalf. They heal faster. They receive medicine better. There's a lot on the religious side in favor of it. I mean, even evolutionary biologists, some that may be religious and some may not, say that the reason why even humans even have religion is because it helps them to reproduce and to survive. There's a reason why there's very few civilizations that have been atheistic throughout human history. Very few, because it doesn't help with survival. And this is for people out there. Will, if you're listening, anybody who's out there listening, that's why this is not. We're not talking about right and wrong. We're not talking about true and false right here. This guy's talking about sustainability and being depressed and being doom and gloom and psychological load and stuff like that that's being placed. That's in favor of religion. That's why human history, all religions, Christian or not, they have that there.
Yeah, one of the
explanation for it.
When we talk about people with depression, some of the things that they are dealing with is, they don't have a purpose, they don't have a direction, they don't believe in anything. Those things take away positivity in your life. Like with the things that he's saying, what the atheistic belief espouses is that there's nothing, right? You're not doing this for there's no purpose in life. We're just living here until we ain't living here anymore. If you look at the studies, and we're going into like psychology, those are some of the things that inspire depression. They inspire lack of motivation, inspire lack of purpose, because there's nothing for them to aspire to. There's no belief. It's just like, I guess we're just here.
Think about this. What businesses, when you go to a business, they have a mission statement, of a vision. When they sit you down and you're going through the onboarding process, they give you that kind of stuff, because if you sat there and was like, hey, look, you're going to make some money here, y'all. And people are like, okay, what's the company about? You create your own purpose.
Yeah, you do it because, for whatever reason.
Yeah, you're not going to have the right culture there.
Yeah, but
it's not going to happen.
Here's the thing: even atheism tells you how not to believe things. They don't just let you. They don't let you not believe in things the way you want to. Atheism has a rubric. It has a structure. Like there's, oh, you're not an atheist because blah blah blah. So again, he's just offering you another thing to replace. He's offering another entity to replace whatever religion or belief system that they want you out of. Which part of the reason, part of his issue with atheism does that too. Like, no, you can't be an atheist if you don't believe like this. If you don't not believe like this. I also want to point out before we move on, he seems very anti-establishment, but it's like he's only applying it to Christianity, right?
Mm-hmm.
What entity, what organization ever in any place doesn't have guidelines, doesn't have rules, doesn't have consequences if you do, I'm like, even you're talking about YouTube and different platforms that he's making money off of right now. You have to subscribe to a certain level of adherence to be able to gain the benefits.
They'll deplatform you. They'll demonetize you.
They will demonetize you if you step outside of the guidelines. Even when we're talking about just, if you're an atheist, you still have to subscribe to the law. You can't just break the law, or there's consequences. It's weird that he's only ascribing this anti-establishment, like, there's rules to this, and if you break those rules, there are consequences. He's only applying that to Christianity. I wonder why that is. And I'm not saying that he's right or wrong. Again, this is not the point of this breakdown. What we're saying is, beware. Like, these are things to look at when you're listening to people like this. They have a certain focus. They have a certain agenda that may or may not be to benefit you.
But it's like it's not subtle. It's very
Yeah,
direct
it's
to
very overt.
it's direct to converting you to his ideology.
Correct.
Well, I wouldn't say he's converting to his ideology, which he is. I would just say the emphasis on he's trying to deconstruct you or remove you from the one you're actually in. It's like it's like I mean, like Freshly said, is Dame for us or he's just against them? And I'm getting the same vibes from this dude.
That's a deep cut, my boy.
Yeah, is this guy really for atheism or just
Bars.
really anti-Christianity?
Man.
I'm getting more anti-Christianity than I am like pro-atheism from this dude.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he hasn't brought up any other entity, any other religion. It's just Christianity. Somebody he's church hurt. He sounds like.
Yeah, I listened to quite a few atheists, and that's why I said it was telling when I heard he was actually giving them instructions how to deal with. Usually, maybe because I look at some of the atheists that actually debate Christians, so they're not giving guidelines. Hey, when they come up to you, say this and that. And I'm like, wow, this is different. I mean, James, you more. I mean, well, could you maybe you?
James
let me
didn't
ask you
come on
this.
today.
Say again.
James, I think James he was meant to come on, but he didn't make it today.
Yeah.
Vulcan
Let me
stuff,
ask you this, Welcome. Was you surprised or was you expecting them to take this angle as far as giving them guidelines and instructions how to converse with Christians?
I think I expected him to do whatever. I mean, like obviously he's reading off a teleprompter. It's not like this guy's impromptu freestyling off the dome. He ain't a little flip. Eating shrimp, coming soon like a hot air balloon, that's not this guy right here. He's had plenty of time. And I know he's had Matt Dillahunty on the show and stuff like that. I'm very familiar with atheism for the last, I think the first literature I ever read from atheists, me and Freshly, read it at a similar time because we were given to us by a friend of ours. It was Sam Harris, letter to a Christian Nation. That was the first time I ever read like a book about atheism. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with it.
Like one of the.
Oh yeah, Fresh. I think he Fresh kind of paused. Am I paused or Fresh paused?
That's Fresh.
Okay, yeah. So with that letter to Christian Nation book, I read it and I was like, man, I didn't find it that compelling philosophically. I like again, like just like this guy, I think he makes some decent points. Nobody critiques the church probably more than me. The Bible says in Corinthians 5 talks about we are to judge the church. We don't judge outside, we judge inside the church. It says judge righteously, judge every tree by its fruit. Mark those among you who preach a false gospel. Jesus was getting rid of the money changers in the temple, who was making his father's house, an idol's temple, or however he words it. So my point is just saying that within Christianity, within religion, we have our own critiques of ourselves. So you never see me or Freshly or even Trip on somebody critiquing the church. We'll do that ourselves. That's wild. That's crazy. You see what I'm saying? But I want my critique to be substantive and to be objective.
Okay.
I want to judge righteously. And my issue with a lot of these guys is I don't want to they want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have nothing. If these people leave what you're trying to remove them from and go to what you have, they'll have less than what they started with. Atheism, it's a failed system that doesn't have any infrastructure. Societies need infrastructure. The slaves were able to congregate at the church. That's why Black people wear their Sundays best to this day. That's where the commerce was happening. That's people getting offered jobs. That's where little Johnny, whose dad, got his leg chopped off or, got taken out by the master, was able to learn manly skills, maybe to get freedom. That's why they were able to congregate. That's why the slave master didn't let them congregate at certain times. To this day, that's when a lot of business is done at the church. A lot of people, meet their people they're going to love romantically at the church. It is something that's been around for a long time and it'll continue to be around. Atheism has something like that. There's no symbolism, there's no rituals because there's too many people in the atheist camp that doesn't believe that stuff exists. Now, this guy in particular, he believes that atheists have rituals. Sam Harris believes in going to study with the Buddhists and stuff like that and finding nirvana and all those kind of things and meaningful ways as an atheist. But that's not the dominant view. You see him debating other atheists who are like, yeah, you can do all that stuff, but it's meaningless. And he can't disprove them. It's a vacuous, failed worldview. And people need to see both sides of it. Don't just look at Christianity when he's pointing at it and critiquing it. Step outside of that and look at Christianity and what he's offering.
Yeah.
and just go down the line and compare the two.
Yeah. Also, don't look at Christianity just from his point of view, from what he's saying. Look at Christianity as a whole. He's only espousing the negative aspects of it or the failings of human beings within the faith. But look at like the whole worldview. Look at the entire picture when you're evaluating that up against what he's offering.
You know what I noticed, and you brought up earlier, Vulcan, that the debate with my son and Marquette, and Marquette made a point to my son. He said that at one time in the past, black women was married at a higher rate than white women. This is my thing when I listen to some of these guys in Red Pill, they say, back then women was more submissive. I'm like, why don't people ask why were they more submissive? It was a religious foundation. It was Christianity. And at one time, black people was, like I said, the face of morality at the time, especially the atrocity that was going through during Jim Crow and slavery. Jim Crow slavery. But I just thought about that. That's one of the reasons why we had single family foundations. And when people compare the women today and to the women in the past, they don't necessarily bring up the nucleus, why that was the cause.
Guys like this
demonize that they've already demonized submissiveness as a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
guys like this are playing Russian roulette with society, domestically, because there is no example of successful atheistic countries and worlds, until you could maybe say recently. And if you want to consider some of those a success, they've done some very. I know when you read the book, Martyr. I think I forgot Martyr for Christ. I can't remember the name. Torture for Christ. There we go. When they were, the Soviet Union that was atheistic, and they would torture and have Christians doing communion with feces and urine. And they would beat these people and say, I praise God. I praise the God that I don't believe that I'm able to do this to you. The torturous nature of it that they would have to go through. And so when you have that kind of mentality, that's a part of atheism. But in the audience, I don't mean that because you're atheist, you're going to do that. What I mean, there's no good reason that you can offer to not do it as an atheist. And I don't mean that in the sense of you personally. I'm saying societally. Like I said, the scientists and the philosophers have already said there's a reason why around the world and throughout human nature there's religion there, because it's necessary for society. It's unifying. And that same debate with Marquette, and I keep referencing my son was talking about, part of the reason why Africa isn't as successful as a country as other places, even though it's the most resource dense continent, is because there's like 50 something countries over there and a bunch of different languages and a bunch of different religions.
Yeah, it's like 1,000 languages. It's a bunch of
conquistadors and China with communism now, or Buddhism at times in India. They have Hinduism. They have unifying religions with unifying languages, so they can fall under one umbrella. The Africans don't have that. It's a bunch of different pagan religions out there, and a bunch of different languages, a bunch of different countries. The thing about
continent
society, for it to grow and build and people to have society where everybody's not trying to take each other out, is they have to have a unifying belief system. You see that in the Book of Eli. Talking about Denzel earlier, action movie. The guy was getting the book so he can control all the people because he needed something that was going to unify everybody. And that unification has to be based on something that's transcendent, something that's ontologically foundational for human existence.
Keep in mind, he was already the boss. He was already in charge of his area. He could have unified them. He was saying, I need something outside of myself to do the job.
For it to be sustaining, for definitely.
For it to be sustainable,
Because you got to think about
barely holding on to this place.
Well, people went to war, what they say, for God and country. Because if you tell it, you're going to send people's young men off to go fight a war because Helen of Troy or whatever the thing is.
You better give them a good reason.
You got to give them a good reason. And that reason can't be some kind of human reason. I don't got no reason. What did Malcolm X or Muhammad Ali say? The Viet Cong ain't never called me no N-word. You see what I'm saying? Like, people gonna rebel. You're gonna have mutiny. That's where religion can be used in a negative way.
On a person, because people are fallible. That person is eventually going to make a mistake and they're going to lose some of the people.
Yeah. But if you
Oh,
think it's a righteous
he did,
cause,
yeah.
God, okay.
Mm.
When the human the reasons fail, the eternal one continues. But do we have a scripture we wanted to pull up?
Yeah, Brad posted John 10, 28 and 29.
I know he's
I
like,
think
man,
he's
I said that to y'all 30 minutes ago.
yeah, I'm gonna put this up on screen and then I'll pop this up real quick. James, you can read through it and it's
James said
referring
he wasn't gonna be
to
to make it.
You're right, Vultures. Let me see. Oh, got it.
So want me to go ahead and read it, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So John 10, 28 through 29, I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all. No one can snatch them out of my Father's hand.
I believe this was in reference to the point we were making earlier, where it talks about you don't have to do anything to earn the love, or there's not rules on eternal love in this religion. Brad, if you're still listening, you can
Yeah, that's
expound or confirm or deny.
for sure. That's very affirming. That's very reassuring, especially for people who are doubting their purpose, doubting the meaning of their life, doubting whether anybody has their back. This gives them meaning, the same meaning he's thinking that there's not there, and it's all about doom and gloom. And so come on my side where it's just nothingness and purposelessness. We can get back into the video.
By claiming that life without God is empty, hopeless, or chaotic. The best counter is not a set of arguments, but from fear. This is the strongest apologetic. Fear-driven faith thrives by claiming that life without God is empty, hopeless, or chaotic. The best counter is not a set of arguments, but a living example of joy, creativity, and purpose outside of superstition. When people see others living meaningfully without constant anxiety about damnation, it helps them imagine a life beyond the walls of fear. This is contagious freedom. Just as fear spreads, so does joy. Your own sense of flourishing becomes an invitation far more powerful than any sermon or debate. Another consideration is the language of liberation. Positioning yourself as anti-Christian reinforces the us versus them dynamic and makes believers defensive. This is why I often remind people that I'm not necessarily anti-religious, I'm anti-superstition, and you do with that what thou wilt. But framing yourself as anti-coercion and pro-human flourishing is getting closer to the point. By framing yourself as anti-coercion and pro-human flourishing creates common ground. Instead of fighting people, you're fighting fear. Instead of attacking identity, you're affirming dignity. This makes our message accessible to those on the edge of leaving who may still feel protective of their Christian identity. The goal isn't to win arguments, it's to set people free from psychological bondage. That requires a tone of invitation, not antagonism. In short, recognize Christians as people under psychological duress, not enemies. Refuse invitations framed in threats and expose the coercion beneath them. Provide bridges out, pun intended. Safe communities, normalize doubt, joyful models, and liberating language. This turns the critique of religion into a constructive path forward, not just tearing down fear, but building up freedom. So let's bring it home. Christians are living under psychological duress. Their invitations are framed by fear, not freedom. Our proper response is clarity, empathy, and boundaries. And our deeper calling is to build bridges, to create communities, normalize doubt, model joy, and speak the language of liberation unashamedly and unapologetically. The way forward is not just about exposing the chains. It's about showing the world what life looks like once the chains are gone. And when people see that, when they see freedom lived out in dignity, courage, and joy, fear loses its power. That's how we help. That's how we change lives. And that's how we keep rising. Lift Off Weekend registration is live for October, and I am absolutely excited. I'll be spending 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, you can pause it, buddy.
I think that's the end of it. Anyway. Oh, okay.
Pause it, buddy. I'm not giving no atheist plugs on this show.
13.
Well, I ain't never heard both say it to you like that in my life.
So the thing is about this, when this guy is talking about superstitions, there are many atheists who are naturalistic materialists, where they believe the only thing that exists in the natural world, the only thing that exists is the material world, things that exist within time, space, and matter. What I mean by that for the audience out there, all the folks out there, Vulcans, people who like to value critical thinking, not being mentally lazy. What that means is time means it's affected by time. We know that water bottles, speakers, people, cars, the sun, the moon, they're affected by time. Space, they occupy space. Matter, I mean, they're made of something. One of the elements on the table of elements, right? So that's what so naturalistic materials, but that's all that exists. The mind doesn't exist. Numbers don't exist. Love doesn't actually exist. Those are emergent properties from physical things like our brains and stuff like that. It's an illusion, that helps us to reproduce in some kind of way. So for them, that stuff, love, numbers, logic, mind, that would be a superstitious thing. So I think people need to understand that even in something like that, that's something that for a lot of atheists is superstition. He wants you to think of superstition as in your religious dogma, Jesus rise from the dead or things of that nature. Or, even some people, we go as far as even to say the historical things that we pretty much know historically happened. They would say, oh, that's just all fairy tale and myth and borrow from other things and stuff like parallelisms and stuff like that. But everybody's going to vary on what they believe superstition is when the religious context. But for a lot of atheists, superstition is anything that's not physical. So when you think about you loving your mom, or you think about, you enjoy math, or, you have your mind, you believe you have free will. There are a lot of atheists that would say that's akin to a superstition. It's illusory. And so I think people need to understand that how these people want you to get rid of your superstitions so they can give you theirs.
Mm. Yeah, that's why listening to him, I'm like, why wouldn't he want his followers or people that's listening to the video to debate their beliefs? He's telling people to avoid it. It just sounds like a cult to me. I'm like, avoid this, avoid saying this. This is superstition. Look at them as under duress. I mean, man, this is interesting, man.
Yeah, we got a clarifying comment from Brad.
He's clarifying what the scripture he posted about
the fear
earlier,
factor.
what it was about, and he's saying
that's
there's many more about salvation.
Absolutely
So
right.
great comment, Brad.
Yeah, and when I challenge anybody out there who's listening, atheists or otherwise, like, walk into talk to 10 different people in the church and ask them, hey, tell me your top 3 motivations to be here. See if they bring up fear. It's non-existent. And y'all's lived experience when y'all deal with religious people, how often do their fears of hell come up?
Only for like children or like early beginner Christians, but even then, not often.
Not often. If you had to give a percentage of it, what would you probably say? In all your life talking to people?
Actually, probably less than 5, if I'm being honest.
Man, that's a good question. Because I was thinking, I hear Christians talk about, but you know what? The people that talk more about,
I'm not saying talking about it. Obviously, people are going to talk about it. It's in the Bible.
Yeah, I said talk. I meant to say the fear part. I hear people that's not considered
actually
Christians
having fear, experiencing fear.
Yeah, that's a low percentage.
Yeah,
that's a low, man. Man, if I had to put a number on it, man.
So that's the parishioners, but then even on the pulpit side of it,
well, you got
if we were just to go to like the top 20 sermons online right now, how much fear mongering are you going to really hear? The only time you're going to hear fear mongering, unfortunately, is when it comes to that tithe. House of the man rob God. That ain't got nothing to do, but like, that's loosely to do, maybe you could say hell, but really it's like, y'all better have my money. So like it's even in that's more like social shaming, which is not good, but the Bible forbids that kind of thing. Paul would say, hey, give when I'm not around, so nobody feels like they have to give because I'm here. But yeah, that's what we got, y'all. I don't know if you have anything more. We broke the video down. Again, this wasn't meant to be a refutation of the guy's point. It was meant to just be helping people to be a little bit more open-minded about people who are skeptical of religion, dogma, Christianity specifically, because the fact of the matter is he's not offering anything better than what you already have. Historically, it's been the best. It's done the most around the world. It's continued to do the most in your own communities, whether you realize it or not. You don't have to focus on the bad all the time. We focus on the bad. We focus on the good. There's way more good happening than there is bad.
That's a good point. I still to this day haven't heard the atheist. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I haven't heard an atheist like espouse anything bad that's happened to them, like physically or even like career wise, because they were in Christianity or some other religion. It's just like, yeah, stop believing that and come out here and do nothing with me. I've never heard like Christianity cost me my job and that's why I'm an atheist, or cost me my marriage and that's what. Like I haven't heard any of that. Even from this gentleman, we don't even
This
know
religion
why
owed me $5.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That quote, Vulcan, I know Fresh, you familiar with the author. Don't let the perfect be the enemy. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think that's
don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Nirvana fallacy. Vulcan brought that up earlier in the show. Yeah, the Nirvana fallacy. Mm-hmm. You out here trying to find perfect, and there is none. And you, in searching for that, you miss a lot of good.
Yeah, and I think people just have to recognize the fact that, again, we're dealing with human beings. There are some studies that show that if somebody's going to be a sociopath, I can't remember if it was a psychopath or a sociopath, but one of the occupations that they would like to choose is a pastor. So there is going to be gross mismanagement of positions of authority because it's an attractive position. But the Bible has ways. Yeah, but there are ways that there's checks and balances, just like judicial branch, legislative branch, executive branch. There's checks and balances in religion too. The unfortunate thing is the parishioners that are typically pretty ignorant of them. They don't execute those things because they fall in love with the celebrity. But there's checks and balances. You don't have to let that be your fate to be abused by an authority. And so just keep in mind that when you read the scriptures, 1 Corinthians 5 is an excellent example of expelling the evil person from among you. Excuse me. There's ways to get leaders out of church. There's ways to get parishioners out of church. So
exactly.
But that's what we got for the Vulcan Soapbox. I don't know if y'all got anything. Send us your videos or emails right there. We want to break things down. We've broken down Dr. Umar Johnson, David Banner, Billy Carson, Wes Huff. And when I say breakdown, I don't mean breakdown in the sense of we tore them down. We just broke down their comments and their perspectives and their worldviews and the way to make it more meaningful, the pros and the cons. Now, if it's, then of course might go harder than normal because a little leaven leavens the whole lump.
So you're just not going to explain that?
With the folks out there, they know what it is.
What about the other folks? What about everybody else?
Get off our channel.
Don't listen to him. We need all of y'all.
What was your favorite show again? You said your favorite character was the Vulcan. Remember that?
Yeah. Shout out to Spock. Yeah.
Man, shout out to Spock.
The only Vulcan on the show. Come on.
Yeah.
Y'all
got anything else? We good?
Yeah, I'm got it. Fine.
Hold on. One last comment from Brad. My pastor said that if we ever find a perfect church, don't go. We'll just mess it up.
Yeah, facts.
You're going to be the first person in that church, too.
All right, fellas. Well, there's another one for the Vulcan Soapbox. We out.
Yeah.